Yo, what's going on, Headliner Nation? Welcome back to the Fantasy Headliners. It's almost draft night. We're going to be live here on YouTube breaking down the first round of the NFL draft, and we are dropping as much draft content as we possibly can leading up to that night. In a video and kind of a series that I started doing last week, a what if series. And last week I talked about Kyle Pitts. What if he goes in different situations? What if he doesn't? How does this affect the draft? Teams, are they going to move around a little bit? Is there a different player that could end up going here? So, talking about kind of with that same concept, Mac Jones. Right now, Mac Jones, a lot of people are split on whether or not he's going to San Francisco at number 3 or he's going to fall a little bit lower in the draft. So let's talk about some what-if scenarios with Mac Jones, his draft stock, and the guys that are around them and how it could affect them during the first round of the draft. But don't forget, if you want a detailed breakdown on Mac Jones, head over to our other YouTube channel, Headliner U, where we are breaking down college football 101 on a consistent basis. Make sure you subscribe over there. Giving away a signed Najee Harris football right now as well, so don't miss out on that. Head over there and check out all of those videos so you can get in on the action and you can get some in-depth profile on these players. So I already mentioned it. Mac Jones, the talk right now, where is he going to go? Number 3 overall to the San Francisco 49ers. And the jury is really out on whether or not people believe that this is going to happen. Me personally, I don't think it does. I don't think he's going to San Francisco. I think it's my boy, okay? You know who that is. It's Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields is going number 3 overall. There's some people, too, who think maybe it's Trey Lance. I'm going with Justin Fields. He has that connection with Kyle Shanahan already. People made a big deal about Kyle Shanahan not going to Justin Fields' pro day and going to Mac Jones instead. However, what a lot of people didn't know is that Fields and Shanahan have worked together a lot in the past because Fields has gone to a lot of camps that Shanahan has been a part of. So he got a chance to go see Mac Jones up close and personal, and then Justin Fields next pro day. He was there for that one. I still think it's going to be Justin Fields to San Francisco. If Mac Jones goes 3 overall, oh well, this video's done with. What if he doesn't go 3 overall? There has been some talk that maybe Atlanta would want to take a quarterback, but personally, I don't think it makes that much sense for them to take a guy like Mac Jones. If Mac Jones falls here, I would believe that there are going to be some teams calling Atlanta to move up to get him. So, Mac Jones at number 4, I don't think that that's going to happen. I don't think he's going to go to the Falcons. He's not going to go to the Bengals. He's not going to go to the Dolphins, okay? We know that for sure. So the next team up would be the Lions at 7 overall. Would the Lions take a shot at Mac Jones? I don't believe the Lions would either. I think the Lions would be interested in maybe Fields or Lance if they were there. But this is another spot where, hey, if he falls to this part, teams are going to move up to get him. And we'll talk about some of those teams in a few minutes. So for the Lions, yeah, they need a long-term commitment at quarterback. They've got Goff right now. It seems like they're going to at least give him a shot to begin with and then maybe draft a quarterback in the next year or two if it doesn't work out. Here, if Mac Jones is still sitting waiting in the 7 hole, then teams are going to be calling the Lions. Also, what if he drops past the 7th spot? Well, the 8th spot in the Carolina Panthers would be sitting there. For the Panthers, this is another team that I would have thought Mac Jones would have gone to if they didn't trade for Sam Darnold. They just brought Sam Darnold in, so now we're sitting in another situation where if Mac Jones doesn't go 7, 8 is another area that somebody could trade up for. The Panthers could end up moving back, and they could get some extra picks. And the ninth spot, it's going to be the Denver Broncos. Now, I think the Denver Broncos would be looking to make a move up for somebody else, but I don't think, again, they're going to be taking Mac Jones. I don't think that they look at Mac Jones and they say to themselves, oh, man, this is an upgrade over Drew Lock. We got to have this guy. No, the 7, 8, and 9 spots in the draft are where teams could start trying to move up to. So kind of breaking this down with Mac Jones, if he does not go to San Francisco at number 3 overall, that's when the Mac Jones slide would happen. Because as the current order stands, I don't believe the Falcons would draft him, or the Bengals, the Dolphins, the Lions, the Panthers, the Broncos, and even to go further, the Cowboys, the Giants, the Eagles, the Chargers, the Vikings, possibly the Vikings, maybe, but I doubt it. I absolutely doubt it. So then it would come down to, okay, if there's this big slide coming for Mac Jones, what teams are going to want to make the move first to go get him? Well, there's 3 teams that I have in mind that would be great trade partners for some of these teams, like the Lions, the Panthers, or the Broncos. And that starts with the New England Patriots, who would have to come up from 15th overall to get him. Going to New England makes a whole lot of sense for me. If he doesn't go number 3 to San Francisco, my next bet is him going to New England, and New England trying to trade up with possibly the Dolphins, Lions, or Panthers to make that move. That 6, 7, 8 spot is really going to be that sweet spot, and possibly that 4 spot as well. If Mac Jones falls to 4, then yeah, maybe there's an opportunity there for him. But again, who's going to be able to come up all the way to 4 to get him? And are they really going to want him, or are they going to make the move for Trey Lance instead? Personally, I think Trey Lance has a much higher ceiling than Mac Jones in the NFL, and I think it would be more worth it for teams to try and trade for Trey Lance than it would be to trade for Mac Jones. So if he starts his slide down, the Patriots are the next team that I think could make the move to come up and get them. Coming from 15th overall, really not that big of a deal, because you're only talking about moving anywhere between maybe 10 to 7 or 6 spots down in the draft. Is that really that big of a deal? I don't think it is, because if Mac Jones is starting to slide a little bit, it doesn't necessarily mean a lot of these skill position players are being taken in front of them. So we know, like Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, let's for the sake of argument say Justin Fields at number 3. The Falcons, let's say they either make a pick here with like Kyle Pitts, or they end up trading back, then maybe it's Trey Lance at that point. The Bengals are going to take an offensive weapon or a lineman. The Dolphins are going to take an offensive weapon or a lineman. The Lions could possibly take an offensive weapon there. But again, there could be a team coming up to get him right here. So for Mac or for the New England Patriots to come up and get Mac Jones, to say the Lions at number 7, the Lions are still going to get a darn good football player at 15. Any of these teams that trade back are still going to get a darn good football player at 15 overall. So the Patriots, for me, have the best shot at making the move because it is the least amount of free fall away. Now, the next team that I could see making that move would be the Washington football team. But now when you're talking about coming up from 19th overall, that's going to be an issue. Coming up all the way from 19th overall is not going to be as easy as coming up from 15. Now, you look at it and you say, Kyle, it's only a difference of 4 spots. And I get that. It is only 4 spots. But when you're talking about 4 more spots, that's when I look at it and say, man, are there going to be just as good as football players there? I think that difference between those 4 spots actually is going to be a pretty big difference. And that is where teams are going to say, okay, is it really worth falling back to Washington or this next team that we're going to talk about? Or is it worth sticking it out and going with New England if they call, even if maybe if New England gives them, let's say New England gives them a pretty good return on value with the 15th overall this year, maybe another pick this year, a pick next year, something like that. Washington might say, we can give you a little bit more in the long run, but for a team to make that move back, is it worth it? And it also depends on where their big board lies, because if they've got a big board where they're looking at it and they're saying, hey, we've got this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy, all the way back those 4 spots, they might think it might be easier to get someone at 15 than it would be 19. So that's why I think that difference in those 4 spots is going to play a pretty big factor between a team like Washington and a team like New England. And that's why I'm giving New England the heads up there as that next team to make that move, or that team that would best be suited to make that move. We know Washington is going to have a need for a quarterback for the next several years. That's no secret to anybody. They're going to have to find someone to come in. And Mac Jones is a guy I think could be very successful in a Ron Rivera-led offense. And again, I've got nothing against Mac Jones at all. He is my QB5 in this draft, but I like him. I don't have any issues with him. It's Trevor Lawrence, it's Justin Fields, it's Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, then Mac Jones. I just think the upside with the other guys is a little bit higher than it is with Mac Jones. But I think Washington would be a really good fit for him in terms of what they do with their scheme there, and Rivera really being a guy that could connect with a guy like Mac Jones. That's really, to me, just one of those guys that's going to be, he's going to be kind of like Alex Smith in terms of a leader on the football field and in the locker room. He's not going to be kind of that hyped up guy. He's not going to bring kind of the same energy that you saw like what Cam Newton would bring. When Cam Newton obviously and Ron Rivera worked together. He's not going to bring that type of energy, but he's still going to bring a very good leadership ability on the field in terms of just how he carries himself, a silent leader, doing things right, being in and out. He's not going to be one of those vocal rah-rah type of guys, which there's no issues with that whatsoever. I just think that in this team and what they're doing there right now, that's exactly what Ron Rivera is going to want for a future quarterback. So I do like Washington potentially trying to make a move to come up and get Mac Jones if he starts to slide. Now, the only other team that I'm really saying has a shot or should even be considering it is the Chicago Bears. But this one's going to be a heck of a lot harder. Again, we're talking about a difference of one more spot now between 19 and 20. But I don't know if Chicago's willing to give up a whole bunch of assets is the problem. I mean, the move up to get Mitchell Trubisky is going to haunt them for quite some time. And when they did that, what they did is they moved up to get Mitchell Trubisky, a guy that maybe wasn't as exciting as a Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes. I believe they felt like he was a little bit more of a safer pick. And I feel like when you look at Mitchell Trubisky and Mac Jones, they probably fit that profile a little bit more closely. So with Mac Jones, do they look at this and say, man, is it a mistake to move up and get Mac Jones? Are we repeating Mitchell Trubisky all over again? Or do we move up and grab a guy like Trey Lance, a strong-armed quarterback with a ton of upside, a smart player? Do we move up and get a guy like him instead to make up for missing on a Deshaun Watson and a Patrick Mahomes? And that's just me speculating, okay? And take it for what it's worth, and it might be something that you say, Kyle, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And maybe it is. I'm not going to argue that part. However, to me, it just feels like a move up to get Mac Jones, it just doesn't seem like it would be worth it. You've got Andy Dalton. Give him a year. If he does well, then maybe you think Andy Dalton is just going to be the guy there, and you just sign him to a decent deal over the next several years, and you don't spend the draft capital, and you build around him. I mean, kind of going back to the same thing I said a second ago with making mistakes in the draft. Maybe you're like, we made a mistake trying to trade so much to go up and get Mitchell Trubisky. Let's just focus on building a team around Andy Dalton, and let's see what happens. That's what I could potentially see happening, and that's why I don't think Chicago is really that much of a threat to try and move up and get Mac Jones. I feel like they would have probably already made that move to try and move up in the draft if it was available to them and something that they were really, really considering. There you have it. Mac Jones, what if? Just some different scenarios, things that could happen with him if he starts to slide in the draft. Again, he could just go 3 overall and it's all done and said at that point. However, I don't think that's going to happen. I still think it's Justin Fields. I think Mac Jones could start to slide a little bit, and someone's going to come up to get him. And that's going to be a big story on draft night. But do me a favor, if you're new here to the Fantasy Headliners, hit that subscribe button. Become a part of Headliner Nation today. Hit the like button as well. And more importantly, down in the comments below, leave a comment. Let me know what you're thinking. Where do you think Mac Jones goes? If he doesn't go to the 49ers, who's the next best bet for you? Who do you think moves up to get him? Headliner Nation, appreciate you tuning into this video. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.